I know what it's like.
Please hold to my hand?
So that's a lyric from Alone and Forsaken.
I mean, that's a carryover from the game. We get Alone and Forsaken, played in the truck, on the tape. Ellie's got a gun. And what I loved is that we take a moment to show she's really adept at it. Like she knows how to chamber around. She knows how to do a mag reload. Like she's really good at this.
Infatuated with it.
Yeah. She smells it.
What is her fascination with guns? What is that?
I think it's the power. I think it's just, well, for one, again, she looks to the people that are survivors, the ones that are capable in this world, and they have the power to kill. The questions she asks Joel are often around, what was it like to kill? What was it like to shoot? What was it like to do these things? It's almost like she's preparing herself. And again, she doesn't want to be in a situation where Joel's going to have to save her. She wants to hold her own, and she wants to demonstrate that she can hold her own.
I loved it. I mean, I remember in the game being shocked that the game was suddenly offering me this thing that had no benefit for the game.
At all.
That's what I loved about it, that it was just gratuitous and yet lovely and human. It was sort of like saying, hey, you know what? You don't have to be eyes in the back of your head or getting ready to run or shoot at every moment. You can take the time to stop, look around, experience the beauty of the world that's created. But what I also love about it, and why it was essential to include in the show, is that it undercuts this thing that happens when adults write kids. They either write them too young or too old. And I love how Ellie has this joy for something so juvenile and infantile and stupid, and she knows it's stupid, but she loves it. It's honest joy. And I always find myself connecting to characters when they show me what they love. And Pedro's reaction is amazing, but I think one of the things that Neil and I kind of, as we were talking about including it, it became a place where we thought, given that it's not something that just emerges dynamically and goes away when you're pausing on the stick in the game, what can we do with this joke book that comments on their relationship as a team? The first moment where Joel talks. I mean, obviously, Joel is speaking for the first 3 episodes, but he doesn't go on at length. And they are driving in the car, and she asks him about Tommy, since that's where he wants to go, and he talks for a really long time. And I just love that notion that Joel doesn't even realize that it's happening. It just is happening.
It's happening despite himself.
But also after the prompt, he goes, it's a long story. This is where I shut it down. And she goes, is it longer than 25 hours?
Yeah,
that's how much
that's
time
what we got. What I thought was interesting about this was he's talking a lot, which in and of itself is interesting. B, he is giving some context that creates threads that we will be able to pull on and expand on later. And also, at the very end of it, when Ellie is pushing him and saying, how do you know you're going to find him? What if you don't? And he says, I will. How do you know? I'm persistent. And Ellie has this little smile on her face because she loves that. That's what she aspires to.
That's what she is.
That's what she is. It's persistence is the thing that connects the two of them.
The thing that stuck out to me most when he's discussing this whole thing about Tommy, and he kind of glosses over this. He says that there have been people that I attach to that I try to keep alive, and I don't do a good job of it. That's
one side of the coin, and the other side of the coin is Joel has a certain narcissism that he must go save Tommy. There's almost a resentment. I got to go save him again. In the first episode, Tommy calls him from jail, and he's like, oh, I got to go bail him out. Goddamn fucking idiot. There's this thing of like, I've got to go do my job and be the guy. But Joel loves being the guy.
Right.
And
who am I if I'm not the guy?
Exactly. It's part of his identity, even as he's pretending to complain about it. The way that in our last episode, Bill says to Frankie, you're my purpose. This is Joel's purpose. He has to have somebody to save.
The glaring question for me would be, maybe it's me being a nerd and having familiarity with the game, but why Kansas City?
Craig hates Pittsburgh with a passion, which is why Pittsburgh is not in this story.
I'm so sorry, Joe Manganiello. No, I love Pittsburgh. But really what it came down to is the Pittsburghness of Pittsburgh wasn't necessarily important. And we had certain environments we knew we could shoot in because we were shooting in Alberta, largely around Calgary, a little bit in Edmonton. And it looked closer to Kansas City. It was just literally, I think, came down to that. It was just harder to manufacture Pittsburgh in that place.
There was also something we talked about distances and where we want them to be on the journey at a certain time of the year, because where the story's going. And we wanted that moment to be closer to the next beat, which we won't spoil. Where just like we're looking at the map in Pittsburgh, it was like, oh, that was much further away. Yeah. So if this beat happened here, there'd be a lot more that happens between the next beat. So it's just one of those things that I refer to as like a superficial change.
Yeah.
Because what city you're in is not important. What happens to the characters and the choices they make in that city, that's what's really important.
So to me, the thing that I liked...
Well, in part, I think it was getting under the skin of people that you think are just bad with a capital B. And it was also a chance to ground violence, because in the gaming experience, violence very quickly becomes sort of just noise. You're killing a gazillion people, lots of monsters. And here, not so much. And it was important, I think, for us tonally to make it clear that violence isn't clean, and the people that you hurt are as human as you are. And Ellie, who had this excited thing with this gun and who had shown violent impulses, is really struck to her core by what's happened here. And Neil has put his finger on the most important thing, which is that Joel is is angry. But why would he be angry at her? He's angry at her because he's angry at himself. Mm-hmm. Because he didn't hear that guy coming. Because he was losing. Because he had just given this big monologue about what a savior he is. And once again,
he would have died without her.
That we get to meet, which was such a surprise, is Melanie Linsky.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? Like, this is a new character. We're completely infusing a new character into our story. Where did this come from?
The show affords us the ability to leave Joel and Ellie and flesh out other characters in different ways. And the best thing I think you could do in The Last of Us is flesh out your antagonism to show that there's motivation behind what they're doing. They don't see themselves as villains or the bad guys. We're just at odds with each other because our goals somehow overlap what we want, which are different things. So to leave Joel and Ellie and focus on Kathleen and put a face to this resistance that has taken over the quarantine zone from Fedra made them more interesting, and made the fact that like Joel and Ellie and this other group are barreling towards each other, like you're kind of cringing just wanting to avoid this conflict between these two groups.
Tough thing to pull off. The name that we kind of landed on pretty early was Melanie. And I've been friends with Melanie for many years, but you know, you can be friends with people, doesn't mean they're going to do your thing. So I sent her this and I was like, look, I'm just going to describe this character, but I need you to know, please, if there's even 1% of you that's like, I don't want to do it, I'm okay with it. It's an awful thing to think like, we won't really be very good friends anymore if you say no. So I gave her every possible out I could give her. And she, Jeffrey Pierce, who voiced Tommy, Joel's brother in the game, plays a very different character in our show. Jeffrey Pierce plays Perry, who is Kathleen's revolutionary right-hand man.
There's some tension between the two of them because I felt from him, you're not doing a good job of leading us. We need to tell people that let me show you something that's happening down here. And we see this, the pavement is beginning to peel up. There's something happening. We don't know what it is. And there's this hesitation from Perry that's like, that's the wrong move. I know it's the wrong move, but I'll know my place and I'll stay in my lane.
Yeah, he did Jeffrey, that's a tough character to play. And Jeffrey did a brilliant job because He believes in her, he follows her, but he is also far more moral than she is. And it's sort of, this is the thing, sometimes the person who's leading needs to be the person who has the least reluctance. That's why they lead you to victory. He's not as interested in her pursuit of vengeance, which is a function of her love.
But he'll follow her despite it.
He will follow her despite it, but she's Bill and he's Frank. And while Joel and Ellie are hiding from all those trucks, they have a moment where Ellie asks him if he's doing okay. And she tells him, that wasn't my first time.
Yes.
And so we are left wondering, what was the first time? But what's interesting is Joel, at this moment, decides, I'm not going to push that. Instead, I'm going to reward her with the gun. Because I trust now. I am going to show her that I trust. And he gives her the gun, and this is the most father-daughter moment they've had.
Finger off the trigger. Now, who taught you that?
Federal school.
Figures. Your thumb. Over your thumb. Left hand. Squeezes down on the right. Got it? There you go. Look it.
And then he wiggles it to show her that she can't get loose, and she laughs, which is a laugh that every parent who's taught a kid has seen, this laugh of discovery and joy, like I've learned. Even though Joel doesn't get it, we know there's no coming back. Once he gives her that gun and he shows her how to use it, he is on a permanent path towards returning to fatherhood.
I think Joel, he's giving in. Like the world is reminding him again and again, you will fail. You cannot do this by yourself. And this is the first time where he's giving in to that. We're now more on equal footing than we were before. And I have to trust you on this journey alongside me.
And bad parent or good parent? Parent. And the look on her face. I mean, she's crying. She's trying to not cry. She's failing. And then he gives her this gun and she's immediately smiling. Not because she loves guns so much, although we know she does, but because she's never known a parent.
She even questions if Marlene's her mom.
I mean, it was pretty funny.
That was great.
Do I look like your mom?
Oh,
no,
what am I?
Do not. He also, somewhere deep down, even if he doesn't have access to it in that moment, and seeing her face light up is an experience he would have never had with Sarah, ever. Because this is not Sarah. This is a very different person. And this is one of those places where you realize that sometimes the people that you create biologically are not as similar to you as other people you may meet on your path in life.
Well, Ellie, she's telling him, I've already killed someone.
Right.
She's already lived like a vastly different life than his daughter would ever know.
I've experienced this. I'm sure other people have as well, where there's sometimes the grief and the sadness is all that you have that remains of the person.
We haven't seen Joel even smile since the world ended, much less laugh.
And he can't contain it. It just comes out.
He doesn't even know.
He doesn't even get it. People make characters too smart. And Pedro would get so annoyed at me because I would always say, like, Joel's not that smart. And he would be like, can you please stop saying that? And I'm like, well, But Joel is not the most insightful man in the world. Let's face it.
Yeah.
When it finally does hit him, it's going to hit him with an almost nuclear force.
Interestingly.
Joel!
By Ellie waking up Joel, I love that he fell asleep.
Again.
On his right ear, but he woke up on his left, meaning that the right ear that he can't hear well out of, he didn't hear someone stepping on the glass. And we wake up and we have these two new characters that are facing us and we're staring at them down the barrel of a gun.
Yep.
We don't know who it is if you haven't played the game, but we have been hearing the names Henry and Sam floated about. And I think that we might have just met Henry and Sam.